Greetings! Welcome to the devlog for hot dogs, Hershey's, and hand grenades. We're going to be doing just a shorter devlog this week. Most of my week has been taken up with just horrible bug fixing, the sort of stuff that makes you question your career choices in life. A bunch of you probably noticed in the latest build in the grill house scene, there has been a bit of a performance regression, but it's very uneven. Basically, if you use certain types of weapons, even just in certain parts of the scene, you can just have blowout horrendous performance issues, especially if it's something like, say, an AA-12 firing buck. It can bring the game all the way down to 1 FPS, and a huge amount of my week was spent tracking down and sort of bracketing exactly what was causing this issue. And I still don't even fully understand why it's occurring, but it's something that I've managed to work around. It's this weird interaction of mesh particles only in that scene and only mesh particles that don't have collision assigned to them. So basically, when you would shoot anything made of meat in the game, impact effects spawn. And basically, if the impact effect sort of category, i.e. you're hitting something with, let's say, a large round, is big, then it spawns a type of mesh particle that actually has some world collisions. You see it sort of come out and sort of have some bounce and such. Whereas the small hits, just to be performance efficient, and the fact that they're, say, coming out of, a buckshot hit could spawn 10 of them at once, didn't have collision. Well, it turns out, so that was one of the things that made it hard to figure out exactly what was going on, because I didn't realize that there was that difference between those systems, because I authored them, I don't know, 5 years ago at this point. So yeah, so I hunted down the problem, and I basically fixed the problem by completely rebuilding all of those visual effects. So they should no longer cause that issue, and frankly, putting out the impact effects for meat like that when you should actually visually match the Sosigs way better, because they were still using a very old material that basically matched the very first meat constructs back in the meat grinder game modes. So bug ends up making me sort of polish something that probably should have been polished and updated a long time ago. But that has now been fixed, and I'm going to continue to do a little bit of performance testing in here. The second big thing that I have worked on, sort of as I've been getting a whole bunch of really useful feedback from you folks playing in the grill house, relates to navigation prioritization and the way in which basically agents, when they go to find a path towards something, parse doors and the state of doors. So I had originally sort of made the sort of supposition that, okay, I should make it so that the system treats a locked door as being way more expensive from the process of moving than an open door, because you can get through an open door way faster than a locked door. The problem with this assumption is that it ends up meaning that, say we have, a complex building with a bunch of doors into it, if one of basically the first door that becomes opened then means that that's the path that anyone is going to take from now on. Effectively, you could have, say, attack sort of agents coming from both sides, and the moment one door was open, everyone would now route through that one door, because they're simply trying to get there the most efficiently. So I've retuned sort of the costs and balances, and I've made the what's called the off-mesh link system related to the doors more complex, in that before they were sort of a symmetric connection, because that was just easier to set up. Now they're actually two asymmetric connections that can configure themselves a little independently. And so what this basically means is that an unarmed Sosig without a key that is unable to sort of breach a door can still recognize going from a locked door coming from inside to out as a path it can take, where that same Sosig will actually recognize a locked door that, because they don't have a key and they don't have a weapon to breach it, as a completely invalid path, and they'll find another way to try to get to that place. What's cool about this is that this was all part of a larger sort of refactor and expansion that I realized I had to do, both because of some corner cases some folks have found, but also some stuff that I want to do with sort of conditional navigation. And so the corner case was that someone commented on the Steam forum, hey, when I just take lockable platforms and just place them all on the other side of a door, the Sosigs just keep trying to open that door and they just get stuck doing that. Which at first was sort of an infuriating thing as a game designer, because you're like, yeah, okay, fine. So you want them all to be as smart as people and just be able to do anything at all, and the agent just knows what you're doing, which of course is not reasonable from the perspective of AI coding. But it sort of like percolated in a combination of anger and frustration that you go through as a designer for a number of days before I went, you know what? What I can probably do is have the door internally track the number of attempts to open it that occur without that sort of attempt succeeding. And once that occurs a certain number of times, the door can sort of mark itself as obstructed, and all sort of existing agent paths would essentially now treat as obstructed, and they would attempt to take different paths. And the nice thing about this is that this doesn't just cover the corner case of the user does something moderately unreasonable, but it also covers the, like, there was a physics glitch and the door couldn't open, or you've piled too many Sosig bodies on the other side of a door from killing them all, and the door can no longer open, or any other number of things. So that now works, and that, once again, that took a sort of a new approach to the way that I'm handling sort of nav mesh sub areas and allowing things to sort of like tag and interchange and mix their masks. What's cool about this as well, and this is, I haven't gotten to this yet, but it's like right, it's on my to-do list, is for the Meat Fortress scene, which I still need to redo the nav mesh links on that scene anyway, because they're of the older type. What's cool about this is that I can effectively sort of make it so that certain agents are capable of certain things locomotion wise. So like the scout wieners in that scene should be able to double jump, I guess. They should be able to jump up fairly high and the other one shouldn't. So I can lay down a whole bunch of off mesh links in that level that only that agent can use, sort of thing. And the other one that I want to try to do is do a blast jump one. So actually conditionally make it so that if a Sosig is holding onto the rocket launcher or the grenade launcher, that they can essentially fire a blast at their feet that won't damage them. It'll just sort of play the effect, sort of thing, and actually allow them to traverse a vertical jump that the other agents can't, just so that there's some more variation in the way that they move through the environment. So yeah, so that's exciting. And I've got a whole bunch of other wild ideas for how to use this sort of conditional navigation. It's sort of like the moment I realized I could do it, and I realized a sort of efficient way forward in terms of getting agents to sort of like auto reconfigure themselves for it, I got a whole bunch of ideas. So yeah. The other stuff that was done. Oh, and the other thing is I had originally built out an internal system to eventually use that was going to use 12 different unique types of keys across the whole locking system. I reduced that down to 8 just to streamline the system a little bit, and the fact that like each type of lockable obstruction now has to be tagged in the nav mesh area matrix. That actually allows the Sosigs to path conditionally for it. But that's all for future work. But this is suffice to say that the Sosigs will be able to navigate in relationship to doors smarter and smarter as I get this all dialed in. And this was the other one. I don't know if I'm in the process of finishing it right now, so it might go in today's build. And it might not do exactly what I want yet, but one of the things when I had been playing around, some of you might have seen it on my Twitter, was I sort of instructed a Sosig, like, just path right through a window, like just plow through it. It's freaking hilarious because they do some damage to themselves. They usually knock themselves out from some of the physics force and sort of like fling their way through the window. And I hadn't built any of those nav mesh links into the grill house because, well, if they can just smash through the window, why wouldn't they breach through the door, sort of thing. But as I was doing this sort of conditional navigation, I got the idea that I could create a off-mesh link layer basically called panicking, which is routes of navigation that only a desperate SOSIG would do. And so that's my current idea I'm going to play around with, which is I'm going to author in a couple sort of window routes, including from the second story of buildings, that SOSIGs will only take if they're in that panicking state. And hopefully that will end up being as hilarious as it sounds like it is. So that's another thing that I'm just real excited about. So yeah, so that is primarily it. As I said, this is a small build this week that is largely there for fixes and my continued pathing work. As I said, it was a lot of difficult bug related work this week, but I think I'm super happy with it, and I'm going to check in with the modder folk, but I think we might be at the point where we're ready to move this over into sort of like onto the quote ModSafe Alpha branch and go from there. I will check with them, but assuming that's the case, then that will probably be what happens next week. So this will be the last of the experimental branches for this cycle. So I hope you all have a wonderful weekend, and I'll see you all soon. Peace.